Thank you, Peter, and thank you for all the work that you've done, and to Richard as well, everybody here. Look, the first thing I want to say is I've got no idea why we are here. It is beyond ridiculous that there should be a meeting in the Southern Highlands to argue that water is more important than coal. Something is seriously wrong with contemporary society, and something is rotten in government. And that is the issue that has to be addressed. The encouraging aspect of it is that we've just got rid of a stack of bullies in Queensland who just ran over the top of people and thought they could get away with it because they think the people are stupid. And for every 10 people who are here today, there's 1,000 who'd like to be here. And at the end of the day, if there are politicians, and there are, who think, as I have said, usually using the rugby football metaphor, if they think they can win a major game of football without making a tackle, then I got news for you. The opposition just run over the top of you. Now, two things I'd say to start with. One, at the last election, and you understand now they've got a glorious excuse to do nothing about these vandals, POSCO. Anyone from POSCO here today? Anyone game to put your hand up and call yourself Hume Cole and borrow the name of a distinguished pioneer of this country and make yourself look respectable? Or they're most probably at home writing legal letters to me, are they? Is there anyone from POSCO here? You're from POSCO. Well, I hope. Well, that's okay. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, they're Korean too, South Korean. But you see, this is the point. Before the last election, the leader of the opposition said this. He was Barry O'Farrell. The next Liberal national government will ensure that mining cannot occur in any water catchment area and will ensure that mining leases and mining exploration permits reflect that common sense. No ifs, no buts, a guarantee. So what are we doing here? Have these people not heard of Wells Creek, which supplies the water to Berrima and Mittagong and Bowral? Wells Creek. There are all sorts of independent studies that indicate what these vandals are about down here. POSCO, South Korean coal. They don't care about any of that. I'll come to the detail of that in a moment. Now, I'm going to read to you, because I've been asked to, a letter from the member. She's a friend of mine, but she's also the planning minister. She said, I'm extremely disappointed I cannot be there to support this rally, owing to a prior commitment with Premier Mike Baird. I've always been opposed to coal mining in the region and remain strongly opposed to coal mining in Sutton Forest. Don't understand. You're opposed to coal mining in Sutton Forest, you just say no, rack off. That's what you say. We are the government. We are, that's what you say. We are, oh no, we've got to have the Planning Assessment Commission, unelected Planning Assessment Commission. We've got to have the 25 boreholes that they've got approval for, this mob, 25 they've had approved. Oh, no, that wasn't the government. It was a departmental delegation. Well, if it's a departmental delegation that's given these people the right to drill 25 boreholes in the Southern Highlands, I mean, it's beyond my capacity to comprehend how anyone can be so stupid, let alone so willfully part of this vandalistic movement. But nonetheless, if it is departmental delegation that gave that approval, we'll call in the departmental official who gave the approval and get rid of him. If you're going to honour what O'Farrell said. If there's a departmental official, but remember, you see, who is the departmental official? I'll tell you who the departmental official is. He was the bloke who worked for the previous government that gave the approval for the licence in the first place. Do you think he's going to say no now? He knows he's presiding over a whole heap of dumb politicians who've got no guts whatsoever, so behind their back he does what he likes and he gives them approval. And requires people like Peter and everybody else and me to identify what's happened and then start the fight back. But government is either government or it's not. Make up your mind. Are you governing or are you not governing? Or are you delegating the responsibility to govern? Because if you're governing, you are in charge. When Chinese students were shot in Tiananmen Square, there were a stack of Chinese students in Australia on temporary visas. Rightly or wrongly, Mr. Hawke, as the Prime Minister, granted them permanent visa status because there was a fear that if they went back, they would be part of the campaign against protesting intelligent dissident students. So, on a Saturday morning, at a function that was unrelated to China, he made this announcement as the Prime Minister of Australia that he would be granting permanent visas to Chinese students in Australia. When he got off the podium, a senior bureaucratic official travelling with him said, "Oh, Prime Minister, can I have a word with you?" "What's that?" "That statement you made about Chinese students, you can't do that." "What do you mean I can't do that?" "You can't do..." "Listen," Bob Hawke said, "I'm the Prime Minister. I just did it, didn't I?" Who is the government? Now, it's one thing to get a lovely message here which says, I'm not saying anything I haven't said to Prue, I've always been opposed to coal mining in this region. Geez, you wouldn't know it. And remain strongly opposed to coal mining at Sutton Forest. Really? You're the planning minister. You're the planning minister. Can I speak to the managing director of POSCO? Don't bother going any further. I'm the planning minister. You're wasting your money and your time. Rack off. I'm not only the planning minister, I'm the member. Goes on. The community has fought this uncertainty for 4 years. It has. Where was government in the fight? Whose side was government on? Their side. Their side. When Rio Tinto, see, this is everywhere. I made a speech 4 years ago at the little place, and most of you who listen to me know it's about Ackland, where I went to school, and it's a tiny little community which was destroyed by a vandal mob, New Hope Mining, and I went up there to speak on Anzac Day because they were going to move the War Memorial. Can you believe it? Move the War Memorial, where my family and other people's families are honoured because they went to war. Move the War Memorial. Sold the plot to the mining company. Sold the plot. Well, we managed to stop that. However, when we went up there to talk about all of this, it was quite clear that these people were into doing what they're doing here. And I made this speech and said, listen, it's Anzac Day. What's Anzac Day about? Well, to put it simply so kids can understand, and all messages have got to be simple, it's about honouring people who gave their lives in theatres of war so that Australia could be preserved and protected as the democratic, prosperous country we hope it is today. But I said the enemy was outside the country. It was external. The enemy that was threatening our future and our prosperity, and the Japanese got into the harbour, but they didn't get onto land. Yes, they bombed Darwin, but though that enemy was external. And 4 years ago I made the speech, I said, we are today here because we are subject to a mining invasion. This is a mining invasion. It's everywhere. Bowral, the Southern Highlands, Sutton Forest is just a manifestation of a wider issue, aided and abetted by government. Now let me explain. In 2003, up near Singleton, Rio Tinto got a licence, an exploration licence, 2003, to mine beside a little community of Bulga. There's more people here today than there are in Bulga, but it's their home. And between the little community and the mining tenement is a ridge like the Opera House, about as high as the Opera House and about 8-10 times as long. Christina Keneally, I didn't have a problem with that, granted the mining licence on this land over here, not worth too much in terms of agricultural worth, and they had the licence from 2003 to 2021. The Farrell government came to power. Rio Tinto made application for the licence to be extended to 2031 and for them to dishonour the commitment of 2003 to take the ridge and move it on the Bulga community and extend the footprint. Well, this had to go to the Land and Environment Court, and there's a long story about all of that, as these poor people couldn't afford to be represented, and I managed to get a few lawyers to do things for nothing and all that sort of stuff. And we thought, God, what are we up to here? Anyway, we won hands down in the Land and Environment Court. There was a massive attack made by the judge, the presiding judge, against Rio Tinto. Immediately the decision was handed down in favour of the people of Bulga. Rio Tinto announced that it would appeal the decision. Who would join Rio Tinto in the appeal but Brad Hazzard, the planning minister for the O'Farrell government, in the appeal against this tiny little community? And when then I went off my head, along with others, and they got a bit frightened, Harcher, who was then the minister, we know what happened to him, he, in the shadow of night, moved an amendment to the planning provision, what's called the SEP. Don't worry about the detail. And basically changed the SEP by regulation such that when you are considering applications like Sutton Forest now, and like Bulga, and like the Drayton thing next to the studs in the Hunter Valley, and like Bentley, the first consideration they're obligated to give is the quote-unquote economic benefit. Now, Richard will talk about this because it's critical. Richard Dennis will tell you economic benefit is rubbish. The notion that there are more jobs and greater wealth, that is a nonsense. These are foreign outfits that take everything out and pay no tax, take the profit out, fly in, fly out workers, destroy communities, destroy legitimate businesses. So this notion about the economic merit of this kind of development is a nonsense. And we saw that in Queensland, where Newman and co were thrown out. But when they were thrown out after this mining invasion, which raped the Darling Downs, 40,000 coal seam gas wells approved for the Darling Downs. It's no longer called the Darling Downs, it's called the Surat Basin. But when they were thrown out, unemployment was higher than when they came in. The debt was greater than when they came in. Where was the benefit of the mining invasion? Nowhere, because they take the lot and go. However, they changed the planning provisions such that as we speak today, here's the planning minister, as we speak today, those deliberating on the merit of the application must give primary consideration to the quote-unquote economic benefit. Not the health consequence, not the water consequence, not the community consequence and the destructive nature of these things on communities which bring people out on Saturday morning as you are here. No, that's secondary. Economic consequence. So this was joined by Brad Hazzard. And so they went again, they got beaten again. So they've made further application again. To whom? A third application. Anglo-American, up next to the horse studs in the Hunter Valley, have had 3 shots. These people, I'm sorry, are dishonest to the core. When Anglo-American sought an application, and this is relevant to us here, because this is the environment we're operating in. This is why today is important. Because when Anglo-American made the application to mine right next to these horse studs, now their story was the same. They had an application to mine at Muswellbrook, and they'd mined it out. So they said, oh, well, we're here now, we may as well go to Denman, up the road. Denman's up near Mittagong, in about that distance. Up the road, we'll go to Denman. Oh, it doesn't matter that there's horse studs there, and, they employ 50,000 people and produce billions of dollars to the New South Wales economy. We make application. That's what they said. So they were beaten at every turn. When they made the application, they said, now we have to make it on the basis of this. Any alteration to this application would make the project economically unviable. That's the blackmail. That's the threat. That's the dishonesty. Any variation would make this application economically unviable. Well, when it was chucked out, they came back with a modification. Now, wouldn't the say, hang on, which story are you telling us? The first one, where you couldn't possibly make any change because it would be economically unviable, or this one, where you've made change and now you're saying, please say yes? Well, they got knocked off again, and they're in for a third time. So those people like you are living beside this uncertainty. And when I said to O'Farrell, as I've said to him 100 times, and to Michael Baird, okay, well, look, would you like to live in Sutton Forest? Would you like to live at Bentley? Would you like to live at Denman? Would you like to live at Gloucester, 300 metres from a coal seam gas field? Would you? Well, if you don't want to live there, don't ask other people to live there. That's the story. If you don't want to live there, don't ask other people to live in this uncertainty. So the message from the member says, I share the frustration of the community at the long wait for a proposal from the company. Well, we've got a proposal. Drill some bores to see whether there's any coal in the Southern Highlands. It's laughable. It's laughable. You have to say, sorry, not here. These are the rules. There's a fence around this place. It's a glorious part of the world. It's prime agricultural land. It grows things, and it's a tourist mecca. We're not going to desecrate it and destroy it and vandalise it with some South Korean vulture. And that's what they are. But it says, hang on, not over yet. The community has fought this uncertainty for 4 years and understandably are impatient for a resolution. Well, hang on. There's an application here by these people. You're talking about a resolution. Well, there are a review of environmental factors. It's clear that they don't pass the test. They don't pass the pub test at Sutton Forest on the review of environmental factors. Peter, I'm sure later will have something to say to you about water because he's done a phenomenal study into all of this, a hydrological study, but it doesn't pass the pub test. But someone, departmental delegation, has given approval for 25 drilling holes. Now, if I came to you today and said, look, I know you've invited me to speak today about coal mining and so on, but look, I want to say something first because there's a real cancer cluster in the Southern Highlands, and I just want to tell you before I go any further, I've got this potion that cures cancer, and it's a bit expensive, about $120 a bottle, but you take a spoon in the morning and a spoon at night and you'll never see cancer again. You'd be laughed out of town. Why? Because you'd say, well, has this passed through all the appropriate tests to see that what you're proposing is not fundamentally damaging to the health of the community? Mightn't this really fragment the community simply because you're offering something about which appropriate research hasn't been done? Why then, when someone comes in and says, oh, we're going to have 25 drilling bores over here, the fact that the previous bores that have been sunk down are in the wrong place, the fact that it threatens, independent studies say it threatens the water table, and O'Farrell has said, no ifs, no buts a guarantee, wouldn't you say, go away? Go away. The planning minister says, in keeping with established government practice over many years, with any development, industrial, residential or mining, that day of reckoning will come, if we're all here. And if Hume Coal complete their environmental impact statement assessment, well, they haven't submitted one. They haven't submitted one. So you people have got to live with all of this uncertainty, wondering what's to happen. Meanwhile, I've got some friends over that part of the world. I do have some friends, but I've got over that part of the world who decided to sell their property, beautiful property. And they got 2 prospective offers from Sydney. So my friend said, right, well, come and I'll show you the place. But of course, they're driving in separate cars. And as they drive down the road, it's got, rightly so, like your placards here, life depends on water, not coal. Another one says no coal mining, another one says no coal seam gas mining. These people didn't take any time to just turn the car around and go home. Your properties are not worth anything. No one wants to live in a coal field, let alone an open cut coal mine. No one. We are destroying people's retirement capacity. We are destroying people's livelihood. We are destroying the value of their land. What for? What for? Some foreign outfit to come in here and rape and pillage and break every reasonable environmental, community, health and water standard. And we have the government saying, well, we're waiting for the day when they complete their environmental impact assessment and submit their development application to the New South Wales government. It will then be dealt with independently. So independently. Who's independent? Who's independent? Oh, I suppose the bureaucracy are independent. I suppose the Planning Assessment Commission's independent, whom you've never heard of, you've never elected them. We have our own Planning Assessment Commission. It's called the government. And if you haven't got the guts to make a decision based on common sense, then hand your Guernsey over to someone who will. It only requires someone to come down here and inspect the area and saying, don't give me any more documentation, I'm putting it in the bin, I'm not interested, it won't happen. They say, oh, we'll take you to ICAC. ICAC? Oh, so we're frightened of ICAC, are we? Another trumped-up bureaucracy that wants to get hairs on its chest by promoting discretions by people who otherwise wouldn't even have to go to court. You know, we've lost our way here, and we've got to be tough. And we've got to go the distance because a lot is at risk. This letter goes on. It will then be dealt with independently and comprehensively. I'm confident that among other considerations, the strategic significance and security of the Highlands groundwater supply will be an essential one. Oh, we'll be all gone by then. We'll be all gone by then because they're going to appeal. They appeal once, they appeal twice, they appeal 3 times. This is everywhere. Now, they were knocked off in Queensland. And for those of you who are interested, my little Ackland Stage 3, the new Premier there will on Sunday be announcing, or on my program sometime next week, there will be an inquiry into how that licence was issued. And it'll be based on a bit of this stuff. And if you've got enough of that stuff, well, most probably you'll be able to get what you want, or that used to be the case. So the letter ends, I wish the rally every success. Look forward to working with the Southern Highlands Coal Action Group. These people don't seem to understand that there's an election on. And as I say to people, well, you've only got a modest role that you can play, modest, and it's just you're given a little piece of paper and a pencil. And in Queensland, that's all I said. I didn't tell anyone to vote for anybody. I just said you've got a modest opportunity with a pencil and a piece of paper. That's the only chance you get. Don't waste the chance. Now there's the quotation, I'll read it again. The next Liberal national government will ensure that mining cannot occur in any water catchment area, that includes Wells Creek, and will ensure that mining leases and mining exploration permits reflect that common sense. No ifs, no buts, a guarantee. 2 weeks ago at this very time, I spoke 300 metres from the Cataract Dam. The area where I spoke, you can't go because it's non-negotiable for people who want a tourism experience. Behind me, 300 metres away, the Cataract Dam is half empty or half full, whichever you want to say. And there is an application from an Indian company for longwall mining. Longwall mining is where the coal is fairly close to the surface of the land. Therefore, you have to sort of put things like this up to keep the surface intact while you take the coal here about this level. It's not believable, is it? 300 metres from the Cataract Dam. And I said to Premier Baird, you can't be serious, can you? Do you know where the Cataract Dam was? There was no one from the government there. There's no one from the government here today. I think Jai Rail's going to arrive later. Too late, Jai. We have to be where the people are. This is a statement of concern by the people of the Southern Highlands. No different from the statement of concern by the people at Gloucester. There is AGL is in breach, 2 breaches of its licence. 2 breaches of its licence at AGL. Now, hang on. If I drive down Macquarie Street outside Parliament House on the right-hand side of the road instead of the left, and they pull me up and find that my licence has run out, then they take my licence away. These people are in breach and they keep their licence. This approval here ran out. They reissued the approval. Departmental delegation. They had a golden opportunity last year to say to these people, no, the licence to drill the bores won't be renewed. That's under the O'Farrell-Baird government. Under the planning minister, won't be renewed. Well, who renewed and gave the approval for the bores, the 25 drilling holes to occur here? Without appropriate environmental criteria being met, without any analysis, without any consideration of the thing privately funded by Peter Martin about the consequence on water, without any recognition of the damage that's being done to the community, which is you people are here, when you've got lots of things you could be doing, the community is concerned and divided, without the recognition of the fact that we're talking about an open-cut coal mine in prime agricultural land and a prime tourism precinct, common sense would tell you all you have to do is pass the pub test. And the pub test says, if you went into the pub and said to the battler in the pub, what do you reckon of this? This is a place where da-da-da-da-da-da, and they're going to have, they'd say, bull dust. Well, it's on. And it's on everywhere. What we are seeing here is a metaphor of this state. What this rally could be at Gloucester, this rally could be at Bentley, this rally could be at Casino, this rally could be at Cataract Dam, this rally could be at the Liverpool Plains prime agricultural land where approval has been given to a Chinese company to have an open-cut coal mine, and the footprint is 3,200 acres on top of the Great Artesian Basin, and they get their water for nothing. In Ackland Stage 3, the water extraction from the aquifers will be 9 billion litres a year, a litre for every person on the planet. We can't be serious. They were going to approve 7 mines in the Galilee Basin. This is everywhere. You are part of the contemporary mining invasion. And don't forget that if you don't do something, if you don't stand in the way of the people who don't want to make a tackle, and you've got to make the tackles, if you don't stand in the way, these people will run over the top of you. They don't care. I write to this POSCO mob, all I get is legal letters. I'm happy about the legal letters. I said, well, you've got to understand on a legal letter, there is one principle about legal challenges, and that is discovery. So I'll be entitled then to discover from you the kind of correspondence you've had, the kind of studies you've done, the kind of research you've done, the kind of community consultation you've had, the kind of work that you've done into the water resources and the impact on it. The studies you've done into the impact on communities, I've done none of them. None of them. They won't line up in court against me. They're welcome to. That kind of blackmail doesn't intimidate me, but we do have a fight on our hands, I have to say. And that, in the specific issue that brings us here today, is, of course, the concerns at Sutton Forest. Now, this matter is going to be considered by people other than the government, but I just want you to understand the process. The people who granted approval for these 25 new holes in Sutton Forest, the government says, the minister says, oh, well, departmental delegation. These were the people who granted the licences in the previous government. The Obeeds and the McDonalds granted the licences. You'd think if you're a politician with a little bit of guts, you'd be quite excited to hang a few more scalps from the roof and say, well, they did that, go. No, what they said at the weekend, the government, we are buying back the biggest licence in New South Wales from Dart Energy, which covers the whole of Sydney. And they get hairs on their chest for saying it. The whole of Sydney, yes, well, I'll give them some marks out of 10 for it, but do you seriously think anyone would have allowed Dart Energy to mine under the town hall or under the airport? So it's easy to take away the Dart Energy licence. That was done years ago when I first pointed out that they had the licence. 50% of New South Wales, when this government came into power, was the subject of an exploration licence or an application. 50% of New South Wales. Why? Bit of this stuff. Bit of this stuff. This week, in the most shameful display of gutlessness, Larissa Waters moved a motion in the federal parliament, the Senate, that the Liverpool Plains be quarantined from coal mining and coal seam gas exploration. I repeat, the Liverpool Plains be quarantined from coal mining and coal seam gas exploration. She moved the motion in the Senate. The National Party senators purporting to represent agricultural interests west of the Great Dividing Range took off and couldn't get out of the chamber quickly enough so that they didn't have to vote on it. The Liberal Party and the Labor Party voted together in opposition to the motion. That's where we are. What is the history of it? Well, Mark Vaile was the Deputy Prime Minister, leader of the National Party, left the Parliament. Where did he go? He's the chairman of the company that's mining in Narrabri in the Pilliga Forest. In the Pilliga Forest, desecrating a natural environment. He's the chairman of the company. Who was the mob mining up near Gloucester? Eastern Star Gas, until they were taken over by AGL. Who was the chairman of Eastern Star Gas? The former leader of the National Party and Deputy Prime Minister, John Anderson. Where will Newman and Seeney go in Queensland now that no one wants them? They'll get a job with the energy company. I should have brought my list of lobbyists here. It's about this thick. And I often wave it on the program and just say to Ross, my panel operator, just open a page here, and you'll see that every lobbyist for every one of these mining companies is a former politician. A former politician. They take the rubles and run. And so this is why we're here today, basically. I hope we can have a simple understanding of where we are. Let me just sum it up because other people have to speak. Firstly, Sutton Forest is just a metaphor of the rest of the state. And if you're just as I am now in my mind's eye, looking at the map of New South Wales, I can go to the northwest up to Gunnedah, beautiful agricultural land, Liverpool Plains, open cut coal mine, 3,200 acres. And people up there say, one farmer wrote to me at 4:10 yesterday morning, God, there's only a reason a farmer would be right to you at 4:10 in the morning. He can't sleep worrying about whether or not he has a future. And his brother's going to be married on the farm. And he said it's most probably the last time the farm will be used for anything as celebratory as this. That's up there. And that approval has been given by the New South Wales government. They paid $300 million for the licence. $300 million. They then wanted to pay another $200 million, Shenhua, Chinese. Now, I have said to Michael Baird, and I say to you, and I said to him in a very tough meeting we had last week, well, there's a simple answer to Shenhua. You take the mining licence away and you say, well, you bought the land, you bought the farmers out, you made farmers unemployed. Right. Now use the land that you own for the purpose for which it is designated agriculture and re-employ some of these unemployed farmers in the week in which we're being poisoned by Chinese imports. And we're being poisoned by Chinese imports because fruit and vegetables in China are being watered from the dams and the reservoirs and the creeks, which are so polluted that the Chinese don't want to drink their water. The Chinese are the biggest buyers per capita of bottled water in the world. And we're importing this stuff, and our wonderful Coles and Woolworths, another one of them going up over there, for God's sake. And then they stick this stuff on their shelves and don't care to what extent they're going to poison Australians. And we should be saying we can supply fresh produce, clean, green and fresh to the rest of the world. Now, a man just brought some stuff up to me. Where is it? Where is it? Someone just gave a bag of produce here. Jan, was it? Where are you, Jan? A bag, and I agree with you. This is grown. Well done. Well done, Jan. It's grown here in the Southern Highlands, clean, green and fresh. We could feed the whole of Asia. We have the land, and we're the best farmers. Here it is. There's the stuff. Jan, look at the apples. Here, have one. Good on you. Wait, Jan, we'll share them, don't you reckon? Share the apples. They're from... Oh, come on. Come on. I've got one more. Who can make a better fist of it? Here we are. Done. Done. Now, we can feed the whole of Asia. And what are we doing? Surrendering our prime agricultural land to mining interests. So this Sutton Forest is a metaphor. Now, second point we make, and the boys behind me will amplify this, these people don't have appropriate approvals. And what do? They just hang around and terrorise local residents. No regard for the community, no regard for health, no regard for water. There's 1,000,001 studies. But remember one thing about this mob. While the farmer has to pay for his water, this crowd get it for nothing. And they're dewatering the aquifers all across this country. And we have to reassert a commitment. The mining boom is over. Now that the mining boom is over, where do we make our money? Agriculture and tourism and the service industries. This mob are no longer relevant. Now's the time to say, time to go. Now look, I have to say, time for me to go too, but I got to say I'm not into this climate change crap. I'm not one of those people. But just supposing I was, how can these, because all of these people who are making the decisions are climate change devotees. Well, if you're a climate change devotee and carbon dioxide, which I don't believe, and carbon dioxide is injurious to health and it's warming the planet, how can you be that on one hand and on the other hand approving coal mines all over the country? How can you be doing this? How can you be then saying, oh, this coal thing's a terrible thing, but we'll export it to China And they'll have the cheapest energy in the world. We're terrified of using coal-fired energy, and our energy prices will go through the roof. Wherever you turn, there are contradictions in the argument, because at the end of the day, these people don't have the guts to do what is in the public interest. But remember, these people are not public masters, they're public servants. The people in charge of the decision-making process are you. And you exercise your little piece of paper and a tick. You exercise that and you win. People won. People won in Queensland. You can win here. And Michael Baird has to understand there's an election. Lovely man. I think he's the best man for the job. But there's an election in 3 weeks' time. And in the period between now and 3 weeks, I'll be saying to him, as I did last Wednesday when I spoke with him, you have to say no to POSCO, no at Gloucester, no at Bentley, no at the Liverpool place. How hard's no? How hard is no? Why do you say no? Because you're a representative of the people. And the people of New South Wales have had a gutful of this stuff. So hang in, hang in. This is all winnable. This mob aren't going to win, I can assure you. It's just that it's going to cost us a lot of energy and a lot of time to fight, but we're equal to the fight. Thanks for having me and good luck.